Hi, I'm Dan, a psychic medium, Reiki master, and massage therapist.
And I'm Zee, a psychic medium, intuitive coach, and Reiki practitioner.
And welcome to Supernatural Scuttlebutt,
A podcast dedicated to spreading spiritual awareness
metaphysical insights.
and supernatural conversations between two healers.
So sit back
Relax.
and enjoy the show. Everybody, welcome back to Supernatural Scuttlebutt. My name is Reiki Dan.
And I'm Zee, and we're so happy that you're here.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for spending time with us. So, what are we talking about today, Zee?
We are going to talk about guides. And before we get started with that, Dan and I were just talking about this, and we want you guys to know that we teach these workshops, and this is what we decided to do for everyone who doesn't have access to our workshops locally in North Myrtle Beach. We wanted to be able to share this, and we felt like the universe was asking us to do that. So we hope that there are various parts and pieces of our workshops that you can take with you. We hope this information helps. So we're talking about guides today, and right off the bat, I want you guys to know that different mediums and psychics and different teachers teach all different things about guides. So we've heard all different types of things, but I was taught by a wonderful evidential medium named Gloria Wyken. She's got some YouTube videos here. She lives in New Jersey. She's just so connected. And I resonated with what she talks about with guides, which is that we have 5 guides, and it's your joy guide, your protector guide, your master guide, Dr. Chemist, and Dr. Teacher. And I know that Dan mentioned another guide that he feels like we have, and it makes sense that we would.
The Reiki guide, which when I teach Reiki level 1 to my new practitioners, I always do a meditation where they go and they visualize meeting their Reiki guide, and it is always somebody of distinction that is very loving energy that wants to kind of help you through your process of learning Reiki, starting to articulate it. A lot of Reiki practitioners have a hard time articulating the energy or knowing what to do after level 1. So besides being an open resource for them to contact me, I always tell them that if they're having a hard time or they're trying to figure out the next way to go, they could always meditate and tap in and ask for help or guidance from the Reiki guide to kind of show them the next direction, or ask for clients or get some sort of guidance to how or what the Reiki is trying to develop through working through them and with them.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I really like that concept. And again, all of these are concepts that we all have. And if you have something different, please remark down in the comments. We would love to hear about that. But now today we're going to talk about these guides that we're aware of and how you can get in touch with them. So the first guide I want to talk about is a joy guide. And the joy guide, generally, from what I have been taught, is the guide that brings information through for you, but it could be any one of your guides. But if you're going to do readings and come into contact with people on the other side, a lot of times it will be your joy guide. How I got in touch with my joy guide is just like you would get in touch with any of your other guides, and that's through meditation and setting your intention, as Dan said in one of our last videos, asking. So you ask your angels, you want to ask your guides, and you want to talk to them. I have had a lot of fun with my joy guide. She's got a great sense of humor and a wonderful personality. And I did a meditation with her and asked her, how do I know you? Where did we know each other before? Why are you my guide? What is your name? What do you do? And she gave me a ton of information that I'll get into. But I'm curious, Dan, how you've gotten to know your joy guide.
The guides concept to me is a little bit different than how you've come to understand them. I never really got in touch with my joy guide, if I'll be honest. I don't really know who it is. I never did a meditation for it, but I just know that they are active because I've always felt like I had a good sense of humor. I like to laugh and play a lot. And usually, when you've met someone that's like, your guides are like having fun together because you're having fun in the physical, right? Like me and Z are always joking and laughing and you're just like picking on each other and having like banter and fun, because I feel like our joy guides really like to, they get excited almost when we get together and we talk about this stuff and we articulate the energy. So I'm not sure who my joy guide is. I just know that they're there. But now that you're talking about it, I feel like I should, to be better prepared. But I know that the joy guide is there, right? So what does your joy guide look like to you? How did, tell them the story of like how you connected, who they are, what they've told you.
So during a meditation, I saw my joy guide, and she's quite tiny, and tiny in a physical sense. But she was a dancer, and I asked her how I knew her, and she told me that we had known each
Tiny
other.
dancer.
Yep, tiny dancer. It's funny that you say that, because there's a story about that. And it was during World War II that we knew each other, she said. And she was with a traveling group of dancers and actors. And that seemed like a very hard time when we would have known each other, and we didn't go into too much detail. But I clearly remember after having that meditation and talking to her and just feeling this joy, that overwhelming joy that you feel when you've been in touch with your joy guide. I got in the car and Tiny Dancer came on the radio. And so it made me laugh. And all of a sudden, there were all these songs that were playing, that were streaming, that were about dancing. It was like Dirty Dancing, Footloose, like you said, whatever it would be. All these,
Dancing Queen.
yeah. And every time it happened, I was just would burst out laughing. It just elevated my energy so much, just to have that connection. She told me a name, but I couldn't really understand it. And that happens a lot with guides, that you can't understand their name. Maybe it's in a different language. So I just ended up calling her Al, because I couldn't understand the rest of her name. So that happened with her. I did another meditation with the protector guide. He showed me a map. He showed me where we had known each other, and the protector guide was very loving, very gentle and kind. But he said that we used to be best friends, like brothers, back in a time in another foreign country where I guess we were hunting, and I was up in a tree, and a tiger or a cat had attacked me, and I ended up dying. And he was holding me in his arms when I died, and then he felt responsible for that. Now, I want to put a disclaimer in here, because I know that for people who are new to this is all going to sound really woo-woo and really, really crazy. But these images were so clear and the feelings were so strong. And it was just amazing how they came through. So have you gotten in touch with your protector guide yet, or?
I feel like we did the video earlier on the angels. Archangel Michael is like my protector. I don't know if he's necessarily my protector guide, but I know he's there for my protection. My protector guides, I think, are my family, that passed on. Both my grandparents, my grandmother who passed. I always get the image of them. I always get the image of my grandfather. I know from our experience together, my grandfather seems to like to come in a lot. When I was getting attuned to Reiki level 3 to become Reiki master, my other grandfather came in, the one that has the military background. So I feel like my family on the other side are my protectors. There are probably other ones, but those are the ones that really stand out to me when you mention protection.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you talk about your grandfather like that, because that would have been a huge honor for him. That would have been a big connection and something that he would care a lot about, because you can tell his sense of responsibility and pride.
I think, yeah, like the protector ancestor guide type of energy, it's almost like they're putting a lot of stock on you because you're carrying the family line, if that makes sense. So I think like they want to make sure that you're doing things right, or you're not getting into trouble, or things are going to work out, so you can kind of continue the family line in some aspect. So I feel like it's very sacred to them to come back and work with you and kind of help you navigate life a little bit better when you're feeling stuck or in trouble. One of the other women, the woman that attuned me to Reiki level 3, she told me when my grandfather came back in that he likes to sit in the car when I'm driving all the time. He just likes to sit there and he's listening to the music, and he's quiet, but he just likes to be in my presence while I'm kind of just going through my day to day. So knowing that gave me some sort of comfort. Like I don't have to worry about being protected all the time. I don't have to worry that things are going to go bad anymore like I used to maybe when I was younger,
Mhm.
because I know that I have that spiritual strength on the other side watching my back.
Yes, yes, and it's a different kind of feeling. It feels so strong and connected that it's
Hmm.
hard to describe in words, in these human words that we have, but you just know that it's there.
Hmm.
I call my protector guide Carta Jakarta because I could not understand his name at all.
Hmm.
But he's come through a lot, and he said, I will never let that happen again. So I feel like he's always there whenever I need him.
Hmm. He took it like personally to keep you
He
protected
did.
because he kind of feels like he failed in that other
Yes,
lifetime.
exactly. That is
Hmm.
exactly it. That was what I felt happened.
Hmm.
And then I do want to say with that I get songs from these guides. I get messages about gifts from these guides. My protector guide, told me I should buy this ring. And when I wear it, it's a ring for a crystal that has protection in it. To think of him and know that he's there and not to worry about anything.
Hmm.
And for Al, the person that my joy guide that I was in Germany with, I actually got some songs that have to do with Carpathia. I have a
Hmm.
beautiful rendition that she just all of a sudden popped up of of German trumpet player and singer who is a rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And I just love that song. Because when I put it on, I can feel that connection so strongly, it transcends time. Like
Hmm.
that connection is there with them, and all of a sudden the years have melted away. And I realize that, they signed up for this in my lifetime to be with me from now on. No matter what happens, they're going to be there.
Hmm. Very powerful.
It is powerful. How about you? Do you have connections like that and signs like that you get from your guides?
Songs, like you said, numbers, just the feeling. I think the feeling of knowing something's there and it's very kind of like warm or loving or supportive, or like they're behind you. Like you always say that in our meditations, like they're behind you, they got their hands on your shoulders. That's kind of the energy I always feel from the protector god.
Yes, yeah, that's a really good way to put it. That's how I feel too. And
Mhm.
then there's a master guide, and the master guide is just what that sounds like, a master, perhaps somebody who is spiritually at a very high level. My
Yeah.
master guide is from India, and I can tell that she is just the way that she dresses, how we talk to each other. She tells me that she used to be my mother in another lifetime, and I was her child. And it feels that way. It feels very maternal. I feel like when she's around or I'm talking to her, that I can clearly feel that energy, what she wants me to learn, what she wants me to know, how she wants me to progress forward spiritually so that I'm moving and learning those lessons just like any mother would want you to do. How
Mhm.
about you?
My master guide, I, when I was like, before I was really going through this journey, I think in my teen years, I would always kind of like hear voices in my head. I would always convince myself that I was going crazy. And I remember always asking, like, who is that? And like very adamantly, this male energy would be like, it's James, like I should know him. But I don't never got a vision or a visual of him. I just know he's there watching and guiding. But every time I've kind of been like feeling a certain energy, I'm like, who is that? And he'd be like, it's James. Like I should know him so well. Like I'm an idiot for not remembering. So I feel like he is there kind of guiding my spiritual journey. He's more behind the scenes, but I know he kind of like manipulates things a little bit just to kind of look out and support me on my journey and give me the tools or the resources of the connection. The way I kind of articulate what you're talking about, the master guide, I feel like that's the guide that's sending the most messages, the most synchronicities, the most conversations that you have with one person, and then it starts repeating down the line, the numbers, the songs. I feel like they might be like the hub for the other guides, right? They're kind of like, they might be sending, they might be doing most of the metaphysical to physical work to kind of get your attention. That's how I feel anyway from James.
And I do feel a similar feeling about the master guide being, like I said, maybe on a higher spiritual level. And so the master guide knows what the other guides need to do, what you need, and how all of that needs to be carried out. So that
Mhm.
makes perfect sense. Listen, I even set my Siri voice to a voice of someone from India, a female voice. Because I was like, it just feels so right. It feels like I hear that voice all the time in the background, and now I can hear it on Siri. So
You'll take it more seriously when it comes from the Indian voice.
I said turn left. And then the doctor, teacher, and doctor chemist has to do with learning, has to do with medicine, has to do with chemically taking care of yourself, however, whatever that is. And I haven't meditated as much on those two guides, but still, I have things that have come from them, and I'll turn to them when I need some information or knowledge. If I'm trying to learn something and I'm really struggling with it, I'll talk to the doctor teacher guide and it just starts flowing right into my head and it works
Mhm.
wonders.
Mhm.
But I told you before, I have a picture because I was walking in a store and I saw a picture of two Asian ladies that were in this picture. And my
Mhm.
doctor teacher, Dr. Chemist were like, oh, you have to get that picture. That's us. And you need to put it in your office because then we're there and you can see us. And so I did. So
Wow.
I think we get these messages from them, that will connect us to them more. So this goes along with the Reiki and the chemists and the teachers. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
So it's funny because my Reiki guide is like the original guy who, rediscovered Reiki, Dr. Yusui. When I did my meditation to meet my Reiki guide, I didn't even know what he looked like yet. And I remember like we're supposed to do this whole scene where we start out in a boat, we go to shore, we climb up this mountain, we go into this old stone type of building, we sit by a fire, and then the guide is sitting next to you. The guide that I see is the Japanese Dr. Yusui, who kind of like rediscovered and brought Reiki to the world, 100 plus years
Mhm.
ago. And very clear, very gentle, almost like angelic type of energy, like he's that powerful, because he had like the sacred duty of bringing in this powerful healing modality into the earth plane again. So I just feel like this that Japanese quiet repose of like being mindful, being present, being gentle, but also being super powerful, at the same time. It's like he knows himself so well, and the wisdom kind of just like flows out of him, and he's got
Wow.
this, I don't want to say like Christ like, but like that same type of glow and that same type of like joyful quietness where he's just happy to be there, right?
Wow.
He's just happy to exist and be of service and be there and support. So when I'm feeling stuck, or I feel like he works with me when I'm doing my Reiki healings, and he kind of just works through me. I don't even have to really think about it too much. I just know he's there, and we kind of co-collaborate our energy to kind of work on whoever I got on my table at that time.
Wow. Wow, that's phenomenal, really. That's such a connection.
Hmm.
So there is a theory that, and I do believe this wholeheartedly, that we have people before we come into this earth plane in this really thick, sluggish energy. That even before that, on the other side, we have this group of people who love us so unconditionally and they want to support us, even though they're not coming on this journey with us. And
Hmm.
so they decide they're going to support us in the way that they are always around us and with us, and they're part of our family, our soul family, and all we have to do is ask, just as you said with the angels, and they'll start responding and they'll be there because they can't respond without you recognizing them and talking to them.
Right. I think a lot of people, when you're talking about angels, you're talking about God, guides, like it freaks them out because they're like, oh, somebody's always watching me. They're watching me when I'm taking a shower or I'm sleeping with my wife. I think a lot of people just, it freaks them out to know that like there's unseen things out there kind of watching all the time. But there's a certain level of comfort to know that like you're constantly being supported on the other side as well.
Yes.
So if it weirds you out a little bit thinking about that, like the ghosts are haunting, they're always watching you, I think you have to realize like they're there for your benefit if you allow them to be. So there's nothing to be really scared or fearful. They're not judging your human life as much as you think they might be. You might be judging yourself and worried they're going to see your deeds or your misdeeds, but they're really there to kind of support, uplift, and make sure you're not getting into trouble or you're not being steered in the wrong avenue.
I agree. I agree. And sometimes I think about it this way. When I go outside with Stuart Little, who everybody saw in my lap, and I take him outside and he's peeing and pooping in front of me, I'm not like, oh, that's disgusting and he's horrible and that's gross. I'm like, Stuart, you have the cutest little poops. Stuart, I'm so glad that you're going outside. You know, there's always a sense of joy and attachment to him. And I love him so much that whatever he's doing, you know, I've told you lately, he started like humping another dog, the other dog's head that we have, Missy's head. I told you recently, you know, that he's growing into his own as a teenage dog. And so Stuart is doing some things that, you know, he's being a little more aggressive because he's got a situation where medically where he hasn't been spayed yet or neutered, I guess you would say, but he needs to be, and we're working on that. If anybody can ever find his testicles. But oh no,
Boys will be boys.
I know. Missy doesn't think it's funny when he sticks that in her ear. But for our cats and our dogs, you know, all of these little creatures that we are so attached to and we love, I don't, I just don't look at it like that. I love
Mhm.
them. I know that our guides love us. It's unconditional. They know that this is just a transitional time for us here on this planet. And we're in a classroom here to learn. And so they're just watching us in the classroom and thinking, oh, that's just a human thing. That's a human
Mm.
thing somebody does.
Right.
So do you have the same thoughts?
So you're saying that my guides and my angels look at me like a pet?
It's a good boy.
Good boy, good boy, good boy. Start kicking my
Yeah,
leg.
please. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I kind of feel that same way. You know, like as humans, we always think that like on the other side, they're still like looking through the lens of the human eye. Like
Oh, yeah, that's a
you
good
know,
point.
a lot of people think that they're like, if somebody passed and they're like, say like they come to you, oh, I wanted to connect to my mom, but she passed and we didn't have the best relationship. It's like they're not holding a grudge on the other side. That was part of their human, and that's gone now. Now they're free and they could see clearly, they could see past their folly and their mistakes and your mistakes. I think it's almost like we have this like filtered lens as human where we can only see through these cracks. But once when we pass, it's gone and we're just out there and we're open and we're connected and we're free flowing and all the knowledge or the wisdom or whatever we want is like instantaneous. But as humans, we're always like, oh, I'm scared of that because they might be mad at me, or we didn't leave on the best terms, or, you know, like we were talking to somebody in our group the other day and they're like, I'm mad at my brother, you know, who's passed that for something. Like it's just funny because like they have this unconditional love that we can't really understand fully as humans, right? Like there's this disconnect between what we see, our perceptions, our judgments. I feel like all of that is like null and void on the other side. They're trying not to judge because I think they understand how difficult life is. They know how hard it is to navigate. They know how hard it is to human, especially in this day and age, right? So they try to be the most unconditional, accepting, loving heart, which would be like Jesus or God or whatever. Like us putting our subjective thoughts and feelings to think how they think on the other side is so like kind of close-minded on our part because we think they're all like us, their personality is the same, they're the same person they were here as they are there. I feel like they have to go through this own like healing decoding process when they pass on, that they're not holding on to that human baggage they accumulated their whole life, and they're kind of more accepting and free and not really pushing this expectation or imposition that they might have when they were living.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like for them, we look like we're moving through really thick mud, like we're like, oh, this energy here. And they're not in that.
Hmm.
So it's a very different point of view, like you said. It doesn't have the same feeling of struggle and challenge and having to overcome because they can see more clearly than we can. So what a loving relationship the universe has with us, that the universe just doesn't shove us down here and say, okay, do your thing and good luck. See
Right.
you over.
Well, I
It
think
sends down a crew with you, just like, on Star Trek. If you would go into the hologram and you have a crew of people with you who know that you're in that hologram.
I think another thing I've heard you tell other people too, like when you're connecting in a reading, and I've been eavesdropping when I shouldn't have been, is like you always kind of tell people you are so loved on the other side. You are so loved, and you're not loving yourself enough the way that they're loving you. Like I think it's hard for us to understand that there's unconditional love on the other side, because then everybody's kind of like, oh, if I'm so loved, why did this happen, and why did that happen, why did this happen? And it's like you said earlier, like, we're on an earth school, we're here to learn lessons, and they're not easy, they're not all going to be easy lessons. Sometimes we have to repeat the lesson before we pass and graduate to the next level. So we're going to keep getting these lessons over and over and over until we learn them, and the guides are there to help you learn the lesson with the least amount of trouble, and they want to help you, so you need to ask.
Yes, and one of the things that I've heard you say to people that I think is incredibly important to understand is that if you don't forgive yourself, if you don't forgive yourself, or you don't hold forgiveness in your heart for someone else, you're not forgiving their actions. And I'd love it if you say it the way you say it, because I'm paraphrasing, but it keeps you mired in this muck. So if you could talk a little bit about that, how you talk about it in our classes and how in your readings, I think that would be great.
I think that's like the biggest limitation we have as humans that feel so much, is like we carry this regret or remorse or guilt or shame over how we acted in the past, and you have to learn to forgive yourself to truly love yourself. And it's not like you're just forgetting and you're forgiving yourself and you're getting over what you did. It's like you're loving yourself at such a deeper level, to know that you're human, you erred in your ways, you're looking to correct it now, but to keep holding that feeling of regret, remorse, fear, shame, like constantly letting it anchor you to the past, it's not helping, it's not helping. And as humans, we tend to ruminate, we let our brain kind of take over, and we just let it spiral down the drain, as we say. We keep going in the negative and the negative and the negative, but like we keep doing that because we keep using what happened in the past that we didn't forgive ourselves for, to let ourselves get down that drain, right?
Yeah, I really like how you say that. That's so true. You have to think about what's really just holding you down and realize how much love is around you and how much love wants to support you, as opposed to what's pushing you down into the muck.
From doing readings, and from doing readings, like you doing readings, it's like you start to understand the human patterns and psychology and behavior and emotions at like a deeper core level. When we're doing readings, we're kind of noticing these patterns of behavior where you're not forgiving yourself, you're anchoring to the past, and the past continues to repeat itself because you never put it to bed, you never alleviated that, you never healed that issue. So it's going to keep replicating itself, like those lessons repeating over and over, until you come to the conclusion you're not loving yourself enough to forgive yourself, right? To
Yeah,
err is human, to forgive is divine. It's a really important quote. Like, to err is human, to forgive is divine. That includes yourself. And I always say that to people, not just forgiving others. Sometimes it's hard to forgive others, but you have to forgive yourself. Otherwise, you're like constantly like cutting yourself. It's almost like this masochistic type of relationship where you're emotionally abusing yourself because of what you went through. But you got to find some way to kind of put the past to bed and rectify that. I think the guides are there to kind of show you you need to love yourself unconditionally, because we're loving you unconditionally from the other side.
Yeah, and to tell you that you're never alone. You're never alone, and all you have to do is ask.
Mhm,
So for anybody out there who wants to get in touch with their guides, Dan and I would say this: meditate, which a lot of people don't like to hear, but you
mhm,
don't have to sit down and just meditate. You can put your feet in the grass like we talked about. You could be listening to music. You could be creating art, however your meditation is.
mhm.
And then just ask for a guide to come through and ask, which guide are you? What is your name? How do I know you? What were the circumstances that were created in another lifetime that connect us? And how will I know you're around?
Mhm.
What are some of the signs? What else would you say you could ask?
I think after like what you said, that introductory relationship and kind of getting to understand it a little better and trusting the information you're getting, what do you want to show me? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do? What do I need to change? How do I shift my energy? What are you here to teach me? I think that's kind of like the core of what the messages the guides are trying to get. And you got to ask. You got to ask to receive.
Yeah, yeah, that's so important. We can't say that enough. That's so important. It sets your intention. We are so glad and honored that you guys have been here today. We would love your comments, love your feedback. Please subscribe and like and comment. I'm Z. I'm really glad that you've been here.
And I'm Dan. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope to see you next time. Bye.
Take care. Bye.